The Broad Perspective Network is not responsible for the content of the following program. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to The Broad Perspective on the Broad Perspective Network. We're glad you're with us today. I'm Vivian Komori.
I'm Greg Barnes.
I'm Kevin Lawson.
And I'm Laura Feliz.
And once again, we have so much to talk about, we don't even know where to begin. But one of the things that we would like to kick it off with is the social media. Not necessarily, I'm not even sure what aspect this is going to be, but social media perpetuates a lot of news stories. Some of it is truthful, some of it is not. But what we are finding, a lot of the trending stuff tends to be fake news, and that's what people want to read. People want to read the things that sometimes seem negative, if you will. But I think that's human nature. And an article that we just read called Social Media, Time to Get Rid of Trending in the Week magazine does talk about how we tend to like to read the macabre and like to talk about that, which I think the news bears that out. Nobody would watch a news that had nothing but good news on it.
I think there have been some studies from a sociological aspect of this. Is that our human species has evolved to pay more attention to negativity because we needed to for our own safety, hence the fight or flight response.
Okay.
We had to pay more attention to it.
Well, that's a good reason. Okay.
So that implies that we're hardwired to be aware of our surroundings and what's going on because it's our primal instinct to survive.
I agree with that statement. However, we're so far removed from that information, we tend to think of ourselves as being in much more control of ourselves than that. And I think the reality is we're really not. There are a lot of things in our brains that are hardwired, and we don't understand that. We think we're in charge, and not always.
Well, that's very true. When we look at the function of the brain, we have three parts. We have the reptilian brain, we have the emotional brain, and we have the thinking brain. And the reptilian brain is complete survival instincts that we are born with genetically. It's hardwired into our systems. And then we have our emotional brain where it operates from feelings and reactive to emotions and things like that. And then we have our frontal lobe, which is the thinking brain, which is more cognitive. It's figuring out, it's calculating, it's thinking.
It's also the newest
Isn't
part
that
of
the
our
difference
brain.
between the left brain and right brain? Left brain is more analytical, right brain is more creative.
That's one separation, but there's the three parts to all of that, and then they're cut in half, like you said. Okay. Some view it more like a male side and a female side, a linear and a creative side. So, yes, you're correct at the same time. We're not saying different things. It's just the way, from my understanding, on how our brain is structured. It has the three parts, and in those three parts, you can cut the three parts in half, so it's actually 6 parts, but it will be having that linear side and the creative side.
Some information isn't needed to be obtained. I think that people are looking at the news and social media as information that is needed, and it's not needed. You do not need a lot of the information that they provide us with. The weather, you might need. Something going on in politics, you might need. Something going on with our troops overseas that's progressive or regressive, or whatever the case may be, you might need. But anything other than that, you really don't need. You don't need to know about the murders down the street. You don't need to know about what's going on 2 states over. Why? Because when you look, again, at history, like I always point out, when you look at history and nobody knew anything, you didn't have these mass panics. You didn't have this so-called fake news widespread. You might have had the town rumors or the city rumors or the state rumors, but you didn't have widespread panic like you do today.
But you did. Case in point, the Salem witch trials, the witch trials in Europe. That was news that spread, and that was very widespread, and a lot of women especially lost their lives for fake news.
Okay, but again, this wasn't fake news. This was a religious movement in which people progressed through religious beliefs. Whenever religion has been something passed on, it has been something that people have pushed because it is a one spread wide belief in which every priest that is going out, or preacher or whoever it might be that's delivering the message, has a congregation in which that congregation carries out whatever belief system that is. So it wasn't so much as fake news, it was a belief system in which those people were tried for whatever they felt was a crime.
Except that many of the people who were tried were innocent and weren't even guilty of the crime.
Well, this is true, but let's look at the logic in what they said. Hey, let's grab this woman. Let's drown her in the lake. If she drowns, we know she's not a witch. If she doesn't drown, she's a witch. So we already saw that their distortion of logic and reason was somewhat out the window. It was more walk by faith than more by sight. Another example was, hey, let's burn them at the stake. If they burn, then we know they're human. If they don't burn, then we know they're a witch. I mean, well, common sense and logic in today's modern technology would say that anybody we grab and burn at the stake, they're going to burn.
Right.
And I think what you just described is some of the earliest forms of social media, because it's in a form, it was nothing more than a big giant gossip column.
Yes.
And the organizers of the gossip column, instead of it being Twitter, it was the church.
And the people that perpetuate it. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right.
But listen to what I'm saying. That was one person with one message. They came out and grabbed a congregation. At no time were you required to go to church. You chose to believe in that. And it's just the same with social media. You're choosing to believe in whatever is being put out there. It's not so much as you have to, you need it. It's what you're choosing to believe.
Most people don't understand that, though. There's a difference between an opinion and a fact. And a lot of what we see on social media and even in mainstream news and alternative media is opinion, not fact.
Okay,
That's
but
true.
again, I can't continue to speak for most people, because I can
Yes,
always
I know.
point out the minority rules the majority. And that's in every civilization. There has never been a majority which rules a minority. It's not common. It's not going to happen, because the minority always rules the majority.
Exactly.
So you can't say that for most people, because most people are going to follow whatever you put there anyway.
Except that we don't realize that, and a lot of these media sources are they perpetuate that the majority rules. That's the idea of democracy. The majority rules, but the reality is that it doesn't, because once the minority can influence the majority, you're right. The minority rules.
Well, the majority rules in a form of democracy is only equated to the electoral college, really, because when you look at the popular vote, your popular vote only counts for what the electoral college is going to do. So when you say majority rules, majority does rule, but it's manipulated so that they can accomplish their objectives. And if you're not paying attention to that aspect, that's on you.
But that's strictly with government. But go ahead.
But also, we had one speaker quite a while ago that talked about democracy and the history of democracy and so on. And she said democracy, in another way of defining it, is mob rule. And when you look at how easily the public opinion is led by the social media today, and it's always been led, it's just much more prominent and out there today, that makes sense, because we don't check our facts anywhere near enough, and we don't realize that most of our news is opinion pieces.
Now, in listening to everyone talk here, I think we also have to factor in the firm consideration that we're talking about group psychology.
Yes.
And when we start talking about social media in that context, we're really talking about the manipulation of group psychology, which brings us back to that godfather, Edward Bernays, who mastered and taught the world the art of group psychology and how to manipulate it, which is now dubbed marketing and advertising. Social media is no different. It is working on the exact same principles as me trying to sell you a toaster. It is functioning on a neurological level where it is all about dopamine and making you feel good in the very moment and addicting you to that so that you continue to do that as opposed to anything else that's going on. It's an attention getter through using your body as a weapon.
But I also believe that, okay, I could be wrong, but I think Edward Bernays also said something to the effect that the elite of our society must be able to manipulate the minds of the majority. and because we are uneducated and too weak to form our own accurate opinions.
Which is what Kevin was saying.
And
Yes.
and if
Yes.
it wasn't Edward Bernays, it was definitely Aldous Huxley
Oh, you
in his,
could
book,
be
in his book, The Brave New World.
And also Elijah Muhammad said it also in his book, A Message to a Black Man. So you have several scholars that mention that that's just a fact. That's just a fact of our reality. You're looking at social media as though it's one big giant. Social media has connected families that haven't seen each other in years, brothers and sisters that haven't been able to be in contact. A lot of the Hurricane Katrina survivors were able to come back in contact with each other because of social media. Social media, like any other reference, has a double-edged sword. It is a double-edged sword. On one hand, you have the good, you have the great, you have the people that love social media. On the other hand, you have the bad, and we always look at the bad to outweigh the good. Why? Because the bad is what we're attracted to. The bad is what we constantly hear. The bad is what people promote. The bad is what gets ratings. You don't go to an action movie and not see somebody get killed. Why? Because you'll say, I'm bored. The plot could be the greatest thing you've ever seen in your life, but if nobody got killed, the whole plot, you would be like, this movie's boring. It's garbage. It's the reality of our world.
I think it depends upon how you're programmed as a child. I grew up watching musicals with my mother, and I'd still rather watch those than almost anything else because I don't want to watch the violence.
Okay, but again, that wouldn't be an action movie. That'd be a musical.
Right. Yeah. And he's saying in an action movie you've got to have fatalities. Well, and we know in newsrooms that their cry is fatals. Give me fatals. People want to know how many people were killed in Las Vegas. How many people actually died? That's the first question. Did you hear about the mass shooting in Florida? Oh, how many people? That's the first question people ask, always, and I'm guilty of it too. Oh my gosh, how many people? That we want to know how many people lost their lives because that affects the drama of the whole thing, and that's what we're. The one thing that we want to be aware of with social media, we want that those I don't know if you call them negative dopamines, but they're an energy that we somehow glom onto, because there was an example in one of the articles I read that somebody had like 1,000 followers on their YouTube channel, but the minute they posted something about crisis actors, shootings and crisis actors, they had 200,000. That's how quick that propagated, because everybody's like, oh, we've got a conspiracy here. Let's share that. Let's push that all around. And people jump into that energy. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. It doesn't matter. But the bottom line is this guy who is constantly publishing things had minimal viewerships, or I think 1,000 is good, but nonetheless it was 1,000, and it jumped to 200,000, boom, at the blink of an eye, when he published a conspiracy theory about an event.
And in that article, I think it's really important that we point out that it talks about how it reached 200,000 views before it was taken down. Mm-hmm. Now, I can post all kinds of controversial information that is fake, and it'll stay up because that will be my First Amendment right. But because this is a public event that everyone's heartstrings are being pulled to, and if I say the opposite of it, now I'm putting out fake news and I have to be censored.
Well, that's an interesting point. That's very. Now, I have to say, if my child was one of those that was killed, and this guy's saying he's a crisis actor, you bet your life I want that taken down. I think it's horrible. However, you're right. You make a very valid point.
Well, I have to disagree, because you have to remember that the First Amendment right only extends to a certain length. For example, you can't yell fire in a movie theater. You cannot create a mass panic, and we have to understand that from 1,000 to 200,000 becomes a mass panic. Because now you have a whole city, a whole state, a few cities, a few states now creating mass panic where, children are not going to school. See, we didn't see the aftermath. I remember 9/11 very well. I was in 6th grade. And when 9/11 happened, a lot of kids didn't come to school. Although I was at school and a lot of other people were at school, a lot of kids didn't come to school for 3 or 4 days even after that. A lot of teachers called off. A lot of principals called off. And you had substitutes coming from everywhere to get a job. It was a mass panic, and that's what we have to understand is you look at the early thousands, and then you look at 2018, social media has grown so much that mass panic is spread in the blink of an eye.
And I think we have to be careful because we talk about we want people to be awake, but what is the difference sometimes between being awake and working in terms of mass panic? Oh my gosh, this is a very interesting subject. I'm glad you brought that side of it up as well as your point too, Greg. They're both two different sides of the same coin, and this is why we do this show, because everybody makes sense.
It's all about perspective.
It is.
But I would have to ask the question now, is me saying the opposite of what everybody thinks, and just because 200,000 people agree with me, or we can't even say they agree with me, just because 200,000 people were interested in what I had to say and viewed whatever it is I had to say, does that give anyone the right to take it down?
Yes. I think what Kevin is saying, we're going to take a break. We'll come back. That's a really good question. We'll be back with more of the Broad Perspective in just a moment. Stay tuned.
Hello, I am His Majesty the Soul, King of Mauritius, and I invite you to help me build the world's planetary egg, an ecological geophysical galleon. It's approximately 180 acres, and it is home to 3,000 researchers from around the world. It is the world's first sovereign, planetary, independent jurisdiction that has the capability of advancing and progressing and fast-tracking every aspect of innovation, helping us redefine what it means to be human in a new world. So check out our website. It's www.mauricii.com. MORACEAE.com. I look forward to seeing you, and please contribute, donate to the GoFundMe page. I look forward to meeting you, and let's build the planetary egg. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Broad Perspective on the Broad Perspective Network. I'm Vivian Komori.
I'm Greg Barnes.
I'm Kevin Lawson.
And I'm Laura Feliz.
And we're continuing our discussion talking about social media, fake news, real news, the whole thing. But Greg asked a really good question before we took our break. And Greg, can you remember what that was and reiterate that, please?
I can. I asked the question by giving an example. If I make a statement on a YouTube or a social media platform and my statement counters the public opinion, does the social medias that I'm operating on have the right to censor me? And we kind of talked about it in the break, but Kevin, you want to respond to that?
Well, I think you have the right to be censored due to the fact that, again, you're creating still a mass panic. You have to remember that, like you said, it's a public event. It's a lot of parents involved. This was a kid that went into the school, because that's what this incident is about. It's about the shooting in Florida. This is another kid that went into a school and shot a bunch of people. So you have children, parents, teachers scared nationwide. And when you say to the public, hey, I think that this person was an actor, you know, they weren't really shot, they weren't really killed, they weren't really this, you're sending a message that is creating a panic, because now you have two sides of that coin. You have one side of the coin where everybody's scared, everybody doesn't want to go to school, and you have the other side of the coin that says, oh, well, it didn't really happen, who cares? And it's kind of like calling the Holocaust fake. It's coming to a point where you have to give time. They're not censoring you because they're saying you can't say that. They're censoring you because you haven't given it enough time to even let the thing pass enough to comment. You're creating you're having parents that are going to be in an uproar. These kids are having public assemblies. They're having peace gatherings. And here it is, you come out and say, well, this never really happened. None of you guys are traumatized. This is all fake. You're an actor.
Okay. A great example of what you just described would be, would someone have the right to stand across the street from a funeral and voice their views about whatever is happening at that funeral?
Of course, so long as that, yeah.
Which has happened, and it's legal.
Okay.
And it has nothing to do with the time for the mourners. It has to do with their freedom of speech.
A funeral, though, is not a public event. Understand that the law states that you cannot be on the funeral grounds and do that. You have to be across the street
Understood.
and do that. So you can say whatever you want, wherever you want, so long as you don't have a blowhorn or so long as you're not encroaching these people. But I'm going to say where the law is going to get in between you on that. Let's say these mourners are going on their drive to go to the cemetery, and your speech then impedes their right to grieve. Believe me, the cops are going to shut you down for the simple fact that you have to move, because now you're in the way.
I want to use the example where you said that they weren't impeding, but they were off site of the funeral and protesting the funeral or whatever was going on. Mm-hmm. Well, I would equate that to social media, because the guy that made this video, he's not on the campus, he's not at the funeral, he's away, he's off site voicing his opinion, and people have the choice to listen to him or not listen to him, but no one has the right to shut him down.
Okay, and again, if that's the case, why didn't he get on the news channels and say what he had to say?
Because he has to be invited.
No, because the reality is no newscast is going to sit there and put anybody on their TV where you're going to say that.
Well, you just confirmed what I said. Period. He wasn't invited. That's the reason why he wouldn't be on there.
In other words, even if he had his own news station, he would have been shut down. Period.
I disagree with that.
If we had Fox News come out right now and say that all this was fake, they'd be off the air that quick.
Well, fake news is...
I mean, it's just that
CNN and Fox News have been caught putting out fake news multiple times, but they haven't been shut down, is the point I'm making.
I'm not saying they have not put out fake news. Everybody has fake news, all the way down to pit bull attacks that are German Shepherds or labs or whatever. Like we said, the whole time people are attracted to what sells. But the reality is they're not creating a mass panic that is going to make people feel like we need to picket and lynch mob and all these other things. Like you said, mob rule. Mob rule only is controlled by stokers and those that are sent to calm. When there's an uproar, when there's racial protests, as I'll call them, because they really turn into riots, but they're not really riots. They're more of racial protests because of whatever happened. They send people out into the public to calm the public down. They send things out into social media to calm the people down. Why? Because they know that if you say the wrong thing at the wrong time, it creates a civil unrest. And that's what he created, a civil unrest. It's no different than Donald Trump saying, hey, we need to arm teachers. It created a civil unrest. Because what happened? A teacher got a gun and did something stupid, went and locked herself in the closet and let off a shot. It was just that simple. And that's why everybody said, and that's why we don't arm teachers. It's a civil unrest. It's just that simple. When Donald Trump went to Anaheim, I'm from Orange County. I'm from where the Ku Klux Klan still lives, still breeds, still comes out at night, still really is involved in that community through and through. And when he came, you saw they had no problem coming out of into the public, into the open, and saying we're the Ku Klux Klan, we're here, and we support Donald Trump. Flat out, clearly and plain. And what happened? It created a civil unrest to the point where it created a riot. People that weren't even from Anaheim came. Why? Because it was social media created by saying, oh, the Ku Klux Klan is here, they support Donald Trump, and da-da-da. Even though he had came out and said, I don't support him.
My question is did the authorities shut down the Ku Klux Klan?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, because it created a riot. It created a civil unrest. You had 6 people get stabbed. And then he came back. He was told to leave, and then he came back in Santa Ana, and before the man could speak, they burnt a police car in the street before he could even open his mouth. So what I'm saying is social media that fast, when they found out he was moving locations, created such a civil unrest because of what happened in Anaheim that they burnt the police car and they shut that event down too. Social media, you can be censored for the simple fact is once you create a mass panic, it's like yelling fire in a movie theater. It's just that fast. You're saying he's not there, he's not this, he's not that. That's like saying that no one in the news is there, that they can say whatever they want, when in reality you are there because you just pointed out social media touches from coast to coast immediately in a blink of an eye.
And I think a good example of that as well is Orson Welles' War of the Worlds. Wasn't that Orson Welles?
War of the Worlds.
War of the Worlds,
War of
yes.
the Worlds and the mass panic that created. Although I don't know that the panic was as bad as we are led to believe. I don't know. I remember reading something about that recently, and I'm not even going to speak to it because I don't remember its entirety. But it created a mass panic, and that was just a story. But because it was on a media outlet that reached the masses, mass panic ensued.
Well, it was after the fact. It wasn't during his presentation that they shut it down. It was after the fact, because society thought that his radio presentation was real, and then they started reacting afterward.
Exactly. No. They were jumping out the windows during.
Well,
thing.
that's true too.
Yeah.
But they didn't shut it down.
I don't know.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Everybody at this table can remember Y2K.
Oh yeah.
Everybody at this table can remember people running out to get water, bread, food, everything possible that they could possibly get, because Y2K was supposed to be, and I quote, the end of the world. Everybody remembers the calendar, 2012, the world was supposed to end, and that was promoted, and everybody ran out to get water and bread and everything else they could get. It created a mass panic. But let me ask you this. If they launched a nuclear weapon right now, and we never knew it was even launched, with all the things that happen in America that they don't tell us about, because we got Scud missiles and everything to shoot this stuff down. If they launched a nuclear weapon right now and it was aimed at, let's say Oklahoma, and none of us knew, would it even matter?
You would get a mass panic like you did in Hawaii.
But if you never knew, you wouldn't even know. That's my point. You wouldn't get a mass panic because you never knew. And this happens every day. We have threats every day that us as Americans do not know, because our government says, point blank period, we have to stop from having a mass panic, because if we release the information too soon, we're going to have people crowding the freeways, crowding the phone lines, getting the water, fighting for water, and everything else.
I remember when 9/11 happened, this nation almost came to a standstill. Everyone was glued to their TVs. Yes, did people run out and get water and toilet paper? Yes, they did, because I was in a market when it first happened. And I said, something's going on. I don't know what's going on, but something's going on. And I remember the day that JFK died, the whole world got silent. And I remember I was a little girl, and I remember thinking, there was the first time I ever heard grown-ups crying. Grown-ups were crying all over the place. Everyone was glued to the TVs.
I remember I have a very dear friend, he's a medical doctor, and he worked for the CDC for a period of time. And when he took a job here locally, we went to different hospitals and medical facilities, and the first thing he asked to see was their plan for major events, major disasters. And with every single one of them, I remember him saying, you have nothing here in preparation for mass panic or hysteria. And he said, that's going to be the most significant thing that all of us are going to be dealing with, and you have nothing in place to deal with mass hysteria. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And all of them are going, oh. And they were right. And I didn't really think about it, but he was absolutely right.
You're right. People that are panicked are so irrational, and if you have mobs of them, they can swarm you. You could lock your doors, they'll come through the glass.
They go right back to that reptilian brain. That's hardwired.
Exactly.
The survival
Certainly.
instinct.
There you go.
I'd like to use the reference of drowning. I mean, if anybody's ever been trained to drown, trained to drown somebody, but trained to help somebody who's drowning, you're told not to go out there and just grab them.
Yeah.
Why? Because they'll climb onto you and drown you.
Yes.
And that's what panic is. Panic is, like you said, a reptilian brain, where it's a survival thing. It's not about who's right, who's wrong, who's going to get more, who's going to. Yeah, it's not about rationale at all. It's about survival. And when you look at that, when somebody is in a state of panic, and I mean ultimate panic, they do not think, they only think survive. They only move, really. They don't even think, they just move.
Right.
So when you have a doctor that can't save somebody's mother, somebody's brother, somebody's wife, somebody's child, or like we've seen with so many of these natural disasters, Hurricane Katrina, where you just cannot treat everybody. You have to move on to those that can be helped right now. Or 9/11 was another example. You have to move on to those that can be helped right now versus those that are so catastrophic that, let's face it, you're going to lose too much blood for me to save you, whereas I can give this person a fourth of what I got to give you to save them. I have to let you die. And it's a cruel world when we look at it like that, but it's the reality of our world, because when that panic happens, we have to find a way to calm it. And the only way we can calm it is what? Save as many people as we can while continuing to move forward. As long as we stagnate, like you said in 9/11, we were stagnated. I mean, from probably early 6 o'clock in the morning all the way until really a few days where people even started, you didn't even hear really people even talking to each other. And then after that few days, it was what? Good morning and good afternoon and how you doing and I baked you a cake.
Yeah, we're just numb.
Numb.
We're just
That's the word I was thinking.
Stupefied. You just didn't know what to say, and I can get that way, as you witnessed this morning in my panic to get out to the studio and get some work done. With so much stuff coming at a person, it's easy to go into that overwhelm and panic mode where you almost hyperventilate. You have to breathe. But bringing it back to social media and bringing it back to First Amendment rights and all that, and I think that what we've uncovered here, or what is really important, is probably the number one question on the litmus test is, what is said here something that could incite panic?
It is, and don't get me wrong, I agree with Greg a lot. I do not believe, although you can be censored, I don't believe that we should continue to censor people, and I'm gonna tell you why I don't believe we should continue to censor people. Social media has become everybody's god. And it is ruling people to the utmost. And Greg pointed out something that I strongly believe. You do not have to watch it. I'm 27 years old and I have no social media accounts. Not a one. Not Facebook, not Twitter, not Instagram, not Snapchat. None of them. Why? I choose not to. Right. I just choose not to be in it. Have I had them? Yeah, I've had them. They just don't interest me. Other people, I have friends and acquaintances, like the article points out, they're zombified. That's all they do. They get up, they go to sleep with social media. And I chose not to be a part of that. And Greg pointed it out. You don't have to watch it. You don't have to be a part of it. So it goes back to TV, to video games, to music, to movies, to anything else that we have. We have free will and opportunity not to be a part, not to participate. So if you're participating, it's really on you. So should I censor it? I really shouldn't. But does it need to be? It does, because we know what world we live in right now.
It just shows our human nature is not being very good moderators of ourselves.
True.
I want to jump in and bring us back to the article.
Wait a minute, Greg, can we save that for the next?
Sure.
Yeah, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back and let Greg tell us about the article. And we'll be back in just a moment, so stay tuned.
The 12th hour.
A show literally about everything.
Everything.
A candid discussion between friends about their different perspectives on what they think may be going on.
Or what is not going on.
With so many different areas of information being given out, we attempt to put together the puzzle pieces to create the broad perspective of the whole picture.
Welcome back to The Broad Perspective on the Broad Perspective Network. I'm Vivian Komori.
I'm Greg Barnes.
I'm Kevin Lawson.
And I'm Laura Feliz.
And before we took the break, Greg, you wanted to point out something in the article. Go for it.
Yes, I wanted to just bring it back that we're talking about social media because this article is asking the question, is it time to get rid of trending? And this is how we got into this conversation, because we were evaluating the importance or the legality or measurements of fake news to determine if we should be getting rid of trending, or at least having the companies that have the trending list do away with that. Now, first off, just they're private businesses, so they can do whatever they want to do. But as a society, should we be accepting it or participating in it is what the question really comes down to. Now, this article is using the crisis actor YouTube video as an example of why trending should not be around, because someone can post allegedly fake news and it would sway public opinion, and therefore, because it's not in conjunction with consensus, then it should be censored.
You know, the whole thing about the fake news thing is if we try to come up with laws that stop fake news, then again, I mean, I know this seems kind of a silly, ridiculous subject, but then what do we do with politicians? Because most people think that almost everything that comes out of their mouth is fake news.
Well, you bring up an extremely good point, but the key word or key thought process is who gets to define what is fake news.
Yes.
Because my definition as no one in society that doesn't have a public voice, meaning I'm the average Joe sitting in my living room, versus the politician or lawmaker, and do they get to make the definition of fake news? And what has happened is that the social media content allowers or creators, not creators, but the platforms, the social media platforms like YouTube and Snapchat and all the rest of this, they have created definitions of fake news, and now they are arbiters of truth. Now, who voted them in with making them the officers of truth?
Well, that's a good point. However, that is their platform.
Yes.
It is their platform, and it is, again, if somebody were to put something on there that I find personally very offensive, I wouldn't want it on there.
Okay, and that's consistent and it makes sense. So, but then if you're not being consistent in upholding that policy or enforcing that policy, then does that make you
A hypocrite?
a hypocrite?
Yeah.
Does that make you biased? Right? Where now you don't have a law that's for everyone, you just have a law for the people that you don't like.
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
Okay. And so I think this is the road that society is not society. This is the road that the platform makers or providers are going down. They are allowing their biases to apply to the laws that they've made for their companies, which is still not unnatural, right? We all do that. But they're saying one thing and doing another. They're saying that their law is for everybody, but they're not enforcing it that way. And now we get right back into the hypocrite of government.
Well, I know that this is probably
Hypocrisy of government.
backtracking a little bit, but I remember when Yelp first came out. Is Yelp even still around?
Yes, it
Yes.
is.
Yes, it is. Okay.
Yes, it is.
Well, the controversy was that, well, people were using it to decide where to go and where to spend their dollars and things like that. But then they said that people were posting fake comments to either
Yes.
promote
Of course.
or detract from certain businesses. And then you had businesses trying to sue negative comments of Yelp. So, you know,
That's a very good point.
It is a great point. I
Exactly.
just it came to mind. There's an auto parts supplier here in the Antelope Valley, and he had that very problem. His competitor was putting out negative information about him on a regular basis,
Which wasn't true. I would
which
assume.
was not true at all.
There you go.
And the more and more he tried to dispute it, the more and more they defended it. And it ended up reducing his business down more than 50%
See?
year over year. And it's been 3 years now, and he is still battling with San Francisco, which is the home base for Yelp, to try to get this information, which he's actually proven to be false time and time again. But they're standing behind it saying, well, I don't have the right to take that down because of my policies. And it's a nightmare. So I understand that part of it all, but
Well,
it gets to be this fine line where
but that part of it all says everything, quite honestly, because the people that are posting anything have an intention. Anyone who posts anything has an intention. It might be to motivate, it might be to compliment, it might be to destroy,
it's a bully.
or might be to bully. But anyone who posts anything has an intention. They do. I don't care what it is, there's an intention.
okay.
And that's where the danger can be, because if those intentions are nefarious,
So if you believe the opinions
Exactly.
of somebody on some type of social media post, and you have no idea who that is, you
Which is a perfect example. The Yelp thing with your
go to
with
that
your,
restaurant and find out for yourself. And if you don't like it, then you know from your experience that you do or do not like
Except
it.
that that's a simple solution. But the guy with the parts store, if
Yes.
his being said that he sells faulty parts, you can't go and try
Yeah.
a set of brakes thinking that they're faulty. Do you see how?
You're right. They're just not going to
exactly.
go to him.
And if his business dropped 50%, that means that 50% of his customers are believing
Right.
the fake news, and therein lies the entire problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's created a mass effect for your friend.
Right.
So this is where that guy, his First Amendment's rights. I mean, my gosh, he shouldn't. Oh.
Okay.
So-
now, looking at that, a mass hysteria has been created, resulting in a loss of revenue.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, with the example of the crisis actor accusation in this, where's the loss of revenue? Where's the damage
Oh, there's a
being caused?
huge loss of revenue and damage. Huge.
How so?
Guns,
Well,
gun manufacturers.
well, that's a separate issue, because he simply said that the people that were talking about the shooting were crisis actors. He didn't say the shooter wasn't real. He didn't say the shooting didn't happen.
Oh, no. By implication, if they are crisis actors, the shooter could not be
He,
real
he
either.
didn't say the shooter was crisis actors, and see, that's
It
a
doesn't
stretch.
matter.
That's a stretch.
But it doesn't. Oh, come on, that's logic, Greg. That has to be. If you can't
Well, I
have
disagree
crisis
with
actors
that.
with an active shooter and a gun, they're either dead or he's a crisis actor as well. It doesn't make sense. There is no other way that can play out.
Okay.
I don't think.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate, because it's like having live rounds and blanks. You
Yeah,
either
I
got
mean,
blanks in your
in which
gun or you
case
got
he would
live
be a
rounds.
crisis actor as well.
Okay, but I'm just seeing the logic's being stretched really thin here. He didn't say that the shooter wasn't a shooter. He didn't say that the
Right.
shooter didn't kill
Right.
anyone.
Right.
He didn't say that people didn't die. He said that people talking about the shooting were liars.
Well, I'd look at it like this. It's really two different incidences, because when you're looking at one, like you said, the damage is revenue, which is business. I don't care if there was no social media. Business is business, and competitors compete. That's what they do. And that's why a lot of people don't like the company Walmart in their communities, because why? They say it suffocates little business. Well,
Right.
business is business. If I have more money than you, if I have more means than you, then I can put stuff on Yelp, or I can hire matter of fact, I can hire somebody to put stuff on Yelp all day and go about my day like
drive
nothing
you out of
happened.
business, yeah.
Whereas you're an independent company, you can't afford to fight me. You can't, and that's what it sounds like is happening with him. He's going through business. Now, is it unfair? Yeah, but so is mudslinging in politics. It's politics, it's business, and that's what happens. Whereas with this incident, what you're talking about, yeah, he might not have said that, okay, the shooter's not real. He might not have said these people that died aren't real. He might not have said that this incident wasn't real. But when you say that the person talking about the incident is a crisis actor, that's almost equating saying that a medic in a war is just talking to you after the war and telling you all his endeavors of the things he's dealt with and why he is the way he is, and you saying, "Oh, well, you're just a crisis actor. You weren't really there on D-Day." It would be negating everybody else there. I mean, it, like, again, I pointed out, everybody walking around with a blue tattoo number on them, talking about they were in the prison camps during the Holocaust, and you come out and say, "Oh, no, you guys aren't real. You guys are crisis actors. The Holocaust never happened," because that's really what you're saying. This never happened, although we've arrested.
Or even if it did, you don't know anything about it.
Yeah, exactly.
You got the tattoo on your arm, but you don't know anything about it.
Exactly.
And regardless of whether there are crisis actors or not, that doesn't mean an event didn't happen. Even if crisis actors do get to a locale where something is happening fairly quickly,
Well, I think
doesn't mean the event didn't happen.
I think it's more or less people. The reason why conspiracy theories are surviving is because we found so many to be true.
This is true.
And it's been decade after decade after decade where people be like, "No, that hasn't happened. That hasn't happened. That hasn't happened." And it's coming out to even, things that we're seeing behind the scenes, things dealing with women and sexual abuse, things dealing with politics and
Pedophilia.
the misuse of it. Yeah, pedophilia. Things or child abuse, and things are not being disclosed right away. 9/11 and all these other conspiracy theories that came out. But the thing I like to stress the most is you have, again, what Greg pointed out, the option to participate or not. There are some people that believe UFOs exist. I'm not one of them. But to negate the fact that they do or they don't, it's really a moot conversation because, again, until we see it, I don't know. Or until you see it or can prove it, I'm not going to agree with you. But if that's what you believe, hey, believe it. And the same thing with conspiracy. You don't have to believe.
I don't want to jump off topic here and get on a side point, but UFO means unidentified flying object. I see things in the sky all the time. I don't know what they are. UFO does not necessarily mean alien.
Okay, that's true. Okay. But we don't want to go down that road. But you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It does not.
Okay, but the thing, even with all the other things we're talking about, is you have a choice to participate or not. Whether they're crisis actors or not, you had the choice to participate and believe in that or not. Whether you were, the 100,000 that believed it, or the other 100,000 that didn't, or the 150 that did, and the 50,000 that didn't, you had a choice to be one of those two areas. And again, it's a mass panic created, and they're going to try to prevent that. But should we? We should right now, because our world is so conformed to what the media is saying that we're actually moving that direction of whatever it says. If it said every day we all need to jump off a 30-foot cliff in the water to live an extra 2 years, people would be jumping off of cliffs every 2 years.
I see that, yes.
But it's coming down to really, what are we doing as a people? What direction are we headed? Because before that, we've pointed out examples. We've left one out, which is the tabloids. The tabloids were out before social media. Before that, like you said, we had religion that was used as some of the first forms of social media. We have our old fables that is really a form of social media. We have cartoons that were a form of social media. We have political cartoons that are a form of social media. And all these things are pushed, like you said, with an intent. But if you can't read between the lines of intent to say that, okay, it's just a joke, or okay, I see where you're coming from, however, I may disagree. There's a lot of people right now, especially in America, that agree pot should be legal nationwide. There is a lot of people that oppose that belief. But the reality is, you could choose to participate or not. Let's say it is legal. Cigarettes are legal. They're killing people. Alcohol is legal. It's killing people. You can choose to participate or not. Nobody's telling you because it's legal you have to smoke or you have to drink. But you can't smoke a cigarette anywhere anymore. Unless you're going to hotbox your car. It's pretty much illegal everywhere.
Let me reference back to the article where it talks about trending. Trending doesn't have a definition. It's an arbitrary word. It's ambiguous. And it means different things to different companies. And one of the criterias that YouTube uses is its algorithms is about selecting videos in part on the audience growth and how old the video is, but no eye towards accuracy or quality. But our minds think that trending means popular or impending or accuracy even. Right? That's what our minds are saying, but that's not what made that video be trending. It's not it's not trending because people want to see that. It's what YouTube has chosen to show you to grow its audience. So it's using sensationalism to grow.
Does YouTube choose anything though? YouTube
Algorithms.
But no, I don't. YouTube doesn't choose to show anybody anything. You go in and you choose.
No, on the trending stuff, defining what is trending.
It's a section.
Yeah, it's just
I
it's a
see. I
section
see what you're saying.
where you'll get a
Okay.
notification
I
saying
see.
this is trending.
Yes.
Okay, I
They're
see.
trying
what
to
you're saying.
lead you what they want you to see.
Okay, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back with more of the Broad Perspective. Stay tuned.
BPN. Join the awakening.
The Broad Perspective Network is a portal designed to reveal a new perspective and reality to those who wish to know the truth about the world we live in and our role in it.
BPN. See beyond the illusion.
Welcome back to The Broad Perspective on the Broad Perspective Network. This is Vivian Komori.
I'm Greg Barnes.
I'm Kevin Lawson.
And I'm Laura Feliz.
And this is the concluding segment of today's show. It's been interesting for all of us. I hope it has been for you as well, the listeners. We've had a lot of different opinions and a different side to this debate. But before we took our break, Greg had mentioned about trending, because YouTube does have a trending section. And what is trending? And go ahead, Greg, talk to us.
Well, it's not just YouTube, but it's also Twitter and Facebook. They have trending lists,
Right.
where information or videos or content is being chosen by their algorithms to push information at us. But that doesn't mean that this information is accurate or popular. It simply means that that algorithm has chosen something that's going to create controversy, therefore grow viewers and have more conversation about it, which in turn turns into more people coming to see what's going on. And we as a society are now conditioned to think that trending means that that's what's real and that's what's popular, and that's where we're in trouble, because we are being socially manipulated once again through this thing called trending.
You're absolutely right. I watch people, and I gotta tell you, everybody is influenced and everybody jumps on the bandwagon, and you can take some little thing that one actress wears or does, and all of a sudden everybody's doing it. Go ahead.
And the fact is that you can't actually predict that, because I think there are probably companies out there that do try to predict that to get stuff out there and get it popular. It doesn't always work.
No,
it is kind of hit and miss.
It doesn't. You do it just right. But I read an article recently about Marie Antoinette having a painting done of her in a muslin
Hijab.
No, gown. It was a Muslim dress or what have you. No. Let me finish. It was an outfit made of muslin, which is cotton, made from cotton.
Oh, muslin.
Muslin, not Muslim. Muslin. And it was the reason that slavery took off to the degree it did, because everybody wanted that outfit that she wore, and it was from cotton, and they needed more cotton produced, and that's when that whole thing exploded. Now that's a small. This is just I read a whole article, and it's quite interesting. They were saying, is Marie Antoinette solely responsible for the slave trade? Well, yes and no, but it's because of the dress that she wore, and everybody wanted to look just like her. Well, we're no different now. We are no different now. I'm not saying anything connected to slave trade. I'm just saying, in general, I look at people, like the rage right now is the Frida Kahlo dark eyebrows, those thick dark eyebrows. And every day I'm seeing friends of mine that now have the Frida Kahlo, I call them Frida Kahlo eyebrows.
Oh, they got a name.
Well, no, that's what I call them.
Okay.
But they're the dark, full eyebrows. Nothing's wrong with them at all. It's just that all of a sudden...
It's what's trending.
It's what's trendy.
And a couple decades ago, it was a real thin pencil line.
It was a real thin pencil line,
Yeah.
and then everybody does it. And I'm like, wow. Are we the sock puppets? I know one of the... audios you sent, Greg, talked about the sock puppets. Are we that much of followers? Are we that?
We so want to be individuals, but yet we
No, we
demonstrate
don't.
clearly that we follow anything at a whim.
We don't want to be individuals. We want to be just like everybody else.
We want to be part of the herd. We want to
herd.
blend in and be safe. We
Because-
don't want to stand out.
Yeah,
Some herds
exactly.
run over cliffs.
Well,
Yeah.
okay. Well, when you look at it, we're subjects.
Yes.
And we often try to replicate what we feel is royalty.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what even, you look at ancient times, subjects always try to replicate royalty. Like you
Mm-hmm.
said with the cotton, they were trying to replicate something that was to them royalty. And right now today with the lip liner and the pink and purple and
Mm-hmm.
green lipstick and the hair, everything is a fad.
Right.
And people follow those fads. You had, the zoot suits. You had, certain types of hair, the mohawk. You had, skinny jeans now. You had this, and people don't realize that it came from somewhere, or it came from another part. Like when I was younger in the 90s, skateboarders wore pink and lime green
Sure.
and baby blue, and it was like you knew that person skateboarded. Now everybody's doing it. And It's just something that I think that, like they say, it comes in cycle, then it leaves, then it comes and then it leaves, and that's what we're seeing. But we're seeing it as such an influx because it's so widespread.
Well, and the influence, and see, this is where everything we've talked about today is really about the influence. No matter what a person is posting, there is an influence. It's undeniable. There is an influence. So if someone is listening, now they can choose to be influenced by it or not, but the simple fact that they're paying attention to it does give it some sort of influence.
And therein lies the war that we are all participating in, knowingly or unknowingly, is that there's a war over who controls the influence. Mm-hmm. That's what propaganda is, and social engineering is all about.
And neutrality in a certain level.
Exactly. That's what the argument over net neutrality is.
Exactly.
Because they want to control what we are exposed to in order to influence
who we are, everything we do, everything we buy, everything we consume, everything we vote for, everything we choose to spend our time with, be it a movie or a magazine or what have you. Influence and control.
So the question is does everyone see the Orwellian effect in place? Because all the parts are in place and starting to meld together and work as one.
And define Orwellian effect.
1984, George Orwell, what was written in the book on how society had changed to where the government and Big Brother controlled everything, in every aspect of your life. And you complied with everything because your greatest fear was that Big Brother was watching you and controlling everything you were doing. So you complied with everything.
And here you go.
I think it would go to chasing your desires too, because that's really what it's about. It's about being happy, and you have the phrase YOLO, you only live once, and I think that everybody is really, really on that right now. You only live once, and they're tired of working, and they're tired of breaking their backs for an economy that we see our elders not getting the benefits they were promised. You see somebody work 20, 30, 40 years and breaking their backs and doing this back-breaking labor just to support their family, only to be told, well, we told you're going to have a pension. However, we forgot to let you know we went bankrupt and we sold your pension.
Right.
So it's just, I think everybody is tired is what it is, and they just want to be happy for whatever that reason is or whatever lifestyle they choose.
I would conclude with that is that they're using social media to move us into the me mentality and away from the we mentality.
Oh, we're seeing that all over the place.
And that's exactly what its purpose is.
With that, be aware that you don't want to be one of the lemmings that's going to jump over the cliff. Now, we're just about out of time, so guys, tell us how they can listen to past shows, present shows, etc.
Well, if you go to YouTube and you type in the Broad Perspective, you'll see the Broad Perspective podcast, not to be confused with the other Broad Perspectives or a Broad Perspective, so that you understand which one we are. When you go on that, you can click the link that says subscribe. It's a big red button that looks like a play sign that says subscribe. You can also scroll down to the bottom, leave comments. You got to go past other videos. You can leave comments that, again, if you'd like to suggest something that you'd like to hear, or just leave a comment about the show, or even give your input on the show. We always welcome that and appreciate it here at the Broad Perspective, and that's because it is a broad perspective when we look at two sides of every coin, or maybe you saw something we didn't, and the feedback is always welcomed. And with that being said,
we'd also like to have you suggest topics that you want us to talk about.
We'd appreciate that, absolutely. And there was something else I was going to say, which just slipped my mind. So in the meantime, yes, you can listen to our archives. We have over 400, probably 450 shows now in our archives by visiting our website. Eventually we'll have these all up on YouTube. That's a massive amount of work. So in the meantime, we appreciate everybody's time listening to our show. We do appreciate your input. We appreciate your time. It's been fun. Is there one last sentence you guys want to throw in about any of this with Facebook and social media and all that?
Choose to participate. It's just that simple. You have a choice.
Police yourself. You are the owner of your castle.
There you go. And do your research. Do your research, because and that's one thing that I am learning, that a lot of what I thought to be true before I found out is not. So in the meantime, Thanks for listening. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your input. Please share with us. And remember, join us same time, same place next week, where it's all perspective. Join us for broadening yours.
We hope you've enjoyed today's show. To keep programs like this and other programs on the Broad Perspective Network, go to thebroadperspective.com and click the donate button. We truly appreciate your support.